I am that I am. Master John of Magical Service. It's been so much fun. So beautiful to watch my feminine facet speak through our human John. In recent messages as Master Anna. So beautiful. To welcome that part of self home. Indeed. I am this human called John McCurdy in this lifetime. And I am John's soul. Expressing in this message as the more masculine facet. Because we want to talk with men today. We're doing a workshop entitled The Gift of the Feminine for Men. And this indeed is a topic that I know something about. Mostly because of the work of this human John, but also through so many lifetimes. Most of you watching this have heard the stories of the wounds of Isis, the feminine, our term for the archetypal feminine, and Adam, our term for the archetypal masculine. These stories were channeled through the Crimson Circle by Tobias and Adamus, the Ascended Masters. They were so beautiful. Because they bring to light the reasons why men and women struggle so deeply to find themselves and to relate with each other. When John, years ago, took the sexual energy school from the Crimson Circle. A class that, indeed, we cannot recommend it highly enough. Beautiful class. It explains so much about why you struggle in your life and how to go beyond that. When John first took it, he had just been through a couple of different relationships that hadn't worked out. And one of the main complaints of the women was that he wasn't masculine enough. They wanted to be entertained. They wanted him to decide where to take them for dinner and things like that. Many things like that. And his response was always, just tell me where you'd like to go, and I'll make it happen. Well, in the sexual energy school, Tobias talked about how in the beginning of creation, Isis, the feminine archetype, was, you could say, the one in charge. That's actually a pretty big distortion, though. She was, in a sense, the leader. But, well, we'll go into the details of all of that and how it affects us in the class. But suffice it to say that in that class, Tobias explained how the true role of the masculine was to be in service to the feminine. The masculine was the one who brought the feminine's creation into being. And John cried a lot during that class at the relief of discovering that he had actually been bringing forth the true masculine. We won't go into all the details of that here. But, later on, Adamus created his class on the wound of Adam. Well, before that, in the sexual energy school, in the questions and answers, someone asked Tobias if there was a corresponding wound of Adam. Because in the wound of Isis, she turned over she felt like she had failed. And in the shame of that, she threw up her hands and said, Adam, you have to take over. I have failed. People, these beings, this was long before Earth. They were all angels at the time. She said, they're going crazy. They're feeding on each other's energy, and I can't stop them. So you take over, Adam. And in a sense, she went into hiding. So someone asked Tobias, is there a corresponding wound of Adam? And Tobias paused and said, yes, but it hasn't come to the surface yet. John was watching the video in the class that he was attending. It's about 2 years later. And he said to himself, it's coming to the surface right now. And I know what it is. And indeed, Adam was never designed, the masculine was never designed to lead. His function was to serve. And if you look at Adam now, even with all of the distortion that comes from those wounds, Adam's deepest desire is to serve. Relationship. He wants the feminine to tell him what she wants. And he will do absolutely anything to make that happen. Of course, there's many, many distortions that came into being because of those wounds. Adam took on a job in service because Isis asked him to, that he was never designed for, that he was unable to cope with. He simply doesn't have it in him to be the leader. Now keep in mind, we're talking about the feminine and masculine archetypes, not men and women. Because each of you have both inside of you. Whether you are in a male body or a female body, you have both the masculine and the feminine energies within you. Those in the feminine bodies tend to reflect the feminine energies more. But not always. Many women are more masculine. They reflect the masculine more. And same with men. They tend toward reflecting the masculine. But many men reflect more of the feminine. In the past, John has tried to create a group for men on Facebook, and the feedback was, why would we want a group for men when what we are really doing is bringing the masculine and feminine back together? Well, you see, there's many layers to the wounds. When Adamus talked about the wound of Adam, he wasn't talking about the wound of where Adam tried to take on a job he couldn't do and failed pretty miserably. He was talking about how Adam was the one, the masculine was the one who discovered love on earth. Discovered this thing you call love. And he brought it to Isis, the feminine. And the feminine took a little time, actually, for her to recognize it. But when she did, she said, oh, this is incredible. And dear Adam, I have to go away for a while. Because I have to learn how to make this love my own. How to love myself. Because she was recognizing that was the only way out of her pain, out of her wound, was to love herself. And so, in a sense, the feminine went away. The feminine facet of you, whether you are a man or a woman, it went away. Went deep inside. Left Adam, still trying to manage things. Still feeling so lost. Because he was trying to do a job he didn't know how to do. And also because he missed her so deeply. Now, these wounds affect both men and women. But they play out in different ways, depending on the kind of body that you are in. Oh, they play out in the expectations of society. They're reinforced by those expectations. Men They're constantly feeling the loss of the feminine. And the feminine in her shame, and the wounded feminine. She reinforces that shame within the men and the distortions. So men find themselves desperate to prove themselves. Desperate to prove that they can truly serve her in the hope that she'll come back. No, men don't understand this at the human level. But so many men, they go off to battle not in order to save their families, like it used to be. Well, that was still the same story, but they go off to battle these days. They'll go around the world and fight for some other country, mostly to prove themselves. Mostly to prove that they can be strong, that they can do it, that they can serve. And they try so hard. They try to be the leaders. They end up being brutal dictators. And then there are the men who are waking up. They're feeling that there's something wrong here. And they bring in the feminine. But it doesn't work. They become weak and effeminate. And the women, they run away from that. Either that or in their own woundedness, they conquer that weak man and manipulate him. And because each person contains both masculine and feminine, this battle plays out in so many different ways. Goes back and forth, leads to so much confusion. But now, something is new. Because of the work that a few humans have been doing, more and more humans have been doing, to love themselves. Isis. The divine feminine, you could call it. The inner feminine is returning. John remembers the moment a few years ago, in the spring of 2018. He was lying in a bathtub, just feeling confused, doing his best to nurture himself. And suddenly, she was there. He felt her. His own inner feminine. She was saying, "I'm back. And I have things to show you." And I have gifts for you. Because I found myself. I found my love for myself. And I bring that to you, my dear masculine facet. It changed John's life. Again, we can't go into all the details in this little message, but indeed, there was a time when John couldn't cry. He cried a lot when he was a child. He was very, very sensitive. So much that he got labeled as a crybaby. Because society has this thing, the men shouldn't cry. And so he was punished for crying. His father would often say, either you stop crying, or I'll give you something real to cry about. So when he was 13 years old, he got tired of that, and he turned it off. And for many years, he simply could not cry. In his late 20s, as he was starting to find himself, he started to realize he needed to cry. And through a lot of difficult inner work, he finally let it out again and was able to cry. So many men have had that experience. So many men still can't cry. So many men actually think it's weak, and women too. Even though what they want more than anything is a man who is sensitive, who can feel them. There's still this shame on men crying. The point came a number of years later where John could cry, but he started feeling other lifetimes. He started feeling these energies coming up inside of him. And he realized that he needed to scream. He needed to just go out and scream, not at anybody in particular. But he felt like that's the only way he could let those energies out and come back to balance. And he tried and tried. He went out in the woods, but he couldn't scream. Finally, he talked with a friend about that. And this friend said, I know what you need. And he introduced him to a group called the Mankind Project. And they have these weekend initiation trainings. They call it the New Warrior Training. And they don't even realize it, but what they're really doing is bringing balance to the masculine and the feminine. John was skeptical. But he went because he was desperate. And during this training, he found himself having to take a cold shower on a cold spring morning or autumn morning in the middle of a bunch of naked men. And, well, you can't really do that without screaming. So he screamed. And it was such a huge breakthrough for him. Now he can scream if he needs to. Doesn't need to very often anymore, but he can. And it brought such a new balance to him. There was still a long ways to go. It wasn't until many years later that he had the experience of Isis returning, his own inner feminine returning. But she had been returning all of this life, all of this lifetime. She's been here. Slowly, gently, bringing in her wisdom and her love for self. You may have heard Adamus talk about love 2.0. It's really Isis love for self. And it's now available to the masculine. And it changes everything. It changes your love for others. As John discovered later in 2018. It opens the door to a new kind of love with others. It creates an inner balance where a man can be masculine without dominating, without needing to prove himself, without needing to control everything. He can be strong without being in power. And he can also be feminine when he wants to, because the feminine and the masculine have reunited within. They've come home. As we've talked in some of our recent classes and workshops, this is also about human and soul reuniting. Human, the masculine experiencer, and the soul receiving the experience and imagining your reality. They're back home together now. So, so we've been considering doing a workshop for men for a long time. And when we met Chris Webb, who came to our recent workshop on opening to soul. Wonderful being himself. And the two of them thought we could do a workshop together for men, and wouldn't that be beautiful? Because men and women each have their own their own challenges they've been through in this. And they're different. John's beloved wife, Romana, does beautiful work with women, circles of women, helping them through this same process, helping them open up to themselves and their own love and their own divinity. Well, men need that too. They need to sit in a circle of men and explore together how this has been. Not to process the wounds, but to share, to find the common threads, to assist each other, because this is a very, very confusing process. To assist each other in finding this new place of balance, of love for self, of opening up to the inner feminine. In a sense, you could say that your soul is feminine. It's more feminine than the human. And in this reunion, it's letting in that inner, sacred feminine. And it changes everything in your life. It changes how you feel about yourself. Because the biggest challenge that every human has is the shame and the doubt from inside. And there's only one cure for that, and that is self-love. The love and absolute acceptance of self, just the way you are. Well, men, as their own inner feminine brings her gifts to them, they have those gifts to share with each other. So in this workshop, and receiving the gift of the feminine for men, we're going to explore that. We're going to sit together in a circle. And together allow that in more deeply. We don't know how it's going to play out. John doesn't know. Chris doesn't know. But together we will sit and with whoever shows up, and we'll find out. Because I am divinity, and divinity is here. And divinity is now whole once again. And that changes everything. So, If any of this appeals to you, the information is on the website and on Facebook. So come join us. But whether you can come or not, whether that calls to you or not, feel inside yourself. Feel for that inner feminine. It will bring your masculine into balance. When you let in that feminine, your masculine comes into balance and you become a man or a woman that is attractive to other balanced people. Then you can attract someone who truly matches you, as John did. And you can have a relationship like you've never known before. A relationship where you don't need each other, but you just live in the beauty of sharing together. It's a whole new kind of love. It's here for you now. If you are a woman, encourage your man to come. But it needs to be his choice, not yours. Maybe you want to consider one of Romana's classes for women. Because women do it in their own way, just as we men do it in our way. Some people said when we tried to start a men's group on Facebook, people said, "Why do I want that? Because I'm becoming whole." Yes, indeed, but you're in a man's body, and that means you come under a whole set of society's expectations that you've dealt with all your life. And in a circle of men, it's easier to break through that. Especially in a circle of master men. And the same for women. So, feel in yourself, are you attracted to this or not? Yes, you can do it yourself. We all do it ourselves. But having communion with others on the same journey is always helpful. And that's what this will be about. I will be there. John will be channeling me, Master John. No women allowed in this workshop. Only our divinity, our own inner feminine, and masculine, blending together into true, not power, but strength. So, check it out if it calls you. And we hope to see you there. And so it is.